It's great to have you with us here this morning to round things out for MASDA. So this morning we will talk a little bit about animal industries and animal health, but we've got a lot of business type meetings too that we want to get to for Food Export Midwest, and of course we want to leave a lot of time to hear from Barb Glenn and the team at NASDA, as would be absolutely part of an in-person MASDA meeting. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, just a few housekeeping items. Everybody has been muted so far, but that'll change here as we get into the business meeting part of things. If you do have a question, look at that Q&A button down on the bottom bar there, or the chat feature if you're having any technical issues. And the meeting will also be recorded for replay. So what we've tried to do is give a little bit of a taste of what the types of things you might have experienced here in person, and some of the hot topics, some of the key issues that we focus on here at the Iowa Department of Agriculture. And certainly as we came through the week starting with, or the sessions starting with water quality and soil health, what's happening in row crop in this state, last week with renewable fuels. Of course, we just would not be able to have a MASDA meeting without talking something related to animals, animal industries, the livestock part of Iowa agriculture, and specifically around foreign animal disease response and preparedness. And so we will be talking just a little bit about that today, but there's really no way that we can totally talk about that, but just to give you a flavor, a sense of what we are doing here in the state of Iowa. And I know many of you, this is a hot topic for you as well. But first I want to hear from a couple of our sponsors and great friends. And the first person that we're going to hear from is Ed Key. Many of you know Ed, and a good friend of ours, former Secretary of Agriculture from the great state of Delaware, and now involved in Nuffield USA, chairman of the Nuffield USA program. And we're very happy to be a part of Nuffield. We've had a couple of scholars come from the state of Iowa. And I want to tell you that Ed also did something very special. You know, many of you didn't get to travel to Iowa, but Ed actually did last week. So we just kind of had our own little mini MASDA meeting here in my office. Ed sat at one end of the table and I was at the other. But Ed, it was great to see you. And I just want to give you a chance here to address our group and tell us a little bit about what you're doing and the Nuffield Scholars Program.
Well, thank you, Mr. Secretary. And I guess I didn't get the memo. I went looking for the registration table and where to get my name tag, but we're kind of slow back here in Delaware. But listen, I appreciate the opportunity. So some of you know I was secretary in Delaware for 8 years, and I was actually president of NASDA way back 10 years ago now. But as I was finishing as secretary, I got involved in this Nuffield International Farming Scholars. It started in the UK back in 1947. We got it up and going in the US in 2016 and 17. And basically it takes young farmers, young ranchers, or young agricultural professionals and takes them out around the world. There are 13 different countries that participate. It's about a 14-week program. There's a lead-off conference in March each year, then a 4-week global focus program that used to be 6, but with the COVID pandemic, that's being cut back. And frankly, it may turn out that most of the travel will be domestic this year. There will be opportunities, I think, to go to Australia, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and also Western Europe. But all that depends on how the virus is treating people around the world. But also there's an individual study project, scholars working with sponsors pick a topic, and they go around the world, or at least around the country, writing up that topic. The purpose here is we will be announcing, we will have scholarships available for people from the Delmarva Peninsula, from the state of Iowa. We do have a couple national scholarships available, so we'll be sending that announcement out in the next day or two to all of you. But the other thing is, if you would like to think about or know about the Nuffield program and how it may function in your state, you just need to contact me. And we'll also be mailing out that informational brochure. So just opening the door to Nuffield, really appreciate the opportunity, Secretary Naig. And I think I have fulfilled my limit of 90 seconds. So thank you very much for the opportunity. And I was impressed. Mike told us last week or in the beginning that all the sponsors have automatically transferred this year's over to Nebraska for next year. And I think that says a lot about the sponsors, but also says a lot about NASDA and MASDA as well. So Secretary Naig, thank you. If anybody
Thanks.
needs me, send me an email or call me.
Well, thank you, Ed. And again, I just thanks for joining us today and for what you're doing with Nuffield. You know, Ed and I have talked many times about this when we visited here, that I think some of you would agree with this statement that we do a really good job of receiving visitors from around the world, but we don't do as good a job sending our young people, sending our folks around the world to have them learn and bring back information and learn from those experiences. And we've actually had a chance to do that now a couple times in Iowa, and to be able to receive the delegation of scholars from around the world, which every time that Ed has brought scholars to the state of Iowa, I've absolutely enjoyed the opportunity to interact with them, and I've learned something as well. So I would highly encourage you to look at the Nuffield program and to reach out to Ed if you've got more questions or want more information. Next, I want to go to Rich Dwyer. Rich is Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs and Enterprise Risk for Kent Corporation. Rich, Kent's got a great presence all across the state of Iowa, heavily involved in supporting our animal industries, but more than that, Kent Corporation's involved in several industries. But Rich, tell us a little bit about Kent, and thank you again for your sponsorship.
Thank you very much, Secretary Naig. Appreciate the opportunity. Tell you a little bit about Kent Corporation. We are a diversified family-owned organization. Operating subsidiaries involve the corn wet milling industry, production of animal feeds, pet products, and basically a combination of different items. We also get into the food side. The Kent Corporation is privately held, owned by the Kent family, and led by our third generation, Gage Kent, as chairman and CEO, who apologized for not being here with you, Secretary Naig, with the group, but sends his best. Talk a little bit about the different businesses, but Grain Processing Corporation is our largest part of our business. Its primary products include alcohol, beverage, and industrial alcohols, corn starches, maltodextrins, and corn oil. GPC sells to customers that use products in their end products, such as beveraged alcohol. So all the good stuff that anybody helps supports us, we appreciate that. Food products, nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals, personal care, and industrial starch applications. And of course, hand sanitizers goes along with all that. Kent Nutrition Group, second part of our business, manufactures and markets animal feed and nutrition products for commercial producers, swine, beef, dairy, farming communities, animal lovers throughout the Midwest, Northeast. Some of you are familiar with our brands, Kent Feeds and the Blue Seal brands out east. Your topic for today for foreign animal diseases is extremely important to our business, so we appreciate the time and the work that you're doing. The Kent Pet Group is the naturally absorbent properties of corn are used as key ingredients in the product's World's Best Cat Litter. It's a product that eliminates odors, quick clumping, easy scooping, dust-free, and safe for people, pets, and as far as the planet. And then the fourth one is our Kent Precision Foods Group. It's a dry blending, packaging food company specializing in providing high quality products for customers in the food service, whether it's domestic and international, industrial, as well as consumer products businesses. All this is headquartered in Muscatine, Iowa. A family of companies with approximately about 2,000 employees in 32 locations across the US, and also have facilities in Australia and the UK. And we're doing business in over 60 countries throughout the world. And we're proud to be supporters of the Association of State Departments, MASDA and NASDA, and all the work you do to support those that provide food for the world. So thank you very much, Secretary.
Rich, thank you. Boy, when you go through everything Kent does in that much time, but you're moving right along. Rich took me around the plant here just not that many months ago, and there's something always changing. And of course, he kind of jumped right over it. But there's been a lot of hand sanitizer alcohol made in Muscatine that's gone a lot of places here in the last few months. So we really appreciate, Rich, you being here with us, and please pass along to Gage our appreciation too for what y'all do as a company to give back across the state of Iowa.
Will do.
And finally, this morning, we're thrilled to have joining us Everett Hoekstra, President of Animal Health for Boehringer Ingelheim, and BI's got again a great footprint in the state of Iowa, and a company y'all know very well. Everett, thanks again for joining us this morning. Give us a bit of an overview of what's happening in your organization.
All right. Thank you for your kind introduction, Secretary Naig. It's a real pleasure to join you and your MASDA colleagues today. Your parent organization, MASDA, plays a vital role in ensuring and protecting our nation's food supply, and that's especially true in the Midwest, as you all know very, very well in your roles. We salute your leadership, and we thank you for supporting farmers and ranchers, and we look forward to continuing a discussion about keeping livestock safe and our food supply safe. We also salute the NASDA national efforts to grow and enhance agriculture everywhere in the United States by forging partnerships and creating a consensus to achieve sound policy outcomes between state departments and the federal government and your many, many stakeholders. And you know, those don't always align easily, and we know that as well. It's my privilege to serve as president of our U.S. Boehringer Ingelheim Animal Health activities in the United States. We employ more than 3,000 people in the U.S., including more than 1,100 in the Midwest. Those locations in the Midwest include St. Joseph, Missouri, which is our largest U.S. manufacturing facility. Actually, it's our largest global manufacturing facility. And it's been in operation for more than 100 years, not all under our ownership, but for the last 30, 40 years under BI ownership. We make vaccines for cattle, swine, and a few horse vaccines there. In Worthington, Minnesota, we make custom vaccines for swine and cattle. In Ames, we have our research for vaccines in swine and cattle, as well as some companion animals. And we were delighted to welcome you there, Secretary Naig, to our site not so long ago. I think it was late last year. Thank you for visiting, and please accept my apologies for not being able to join on that particular visit due to my other commitments. In addition, in Iowa, in Sioux Center, Iowa, which is my hometown, actually, I grew up in Sioux County, Iowa, on a family farm there. So I do, while I am a Georgia resident today, I consider myself a proud Iowan and also a proud Midwesterner. Lifelong Minnesota Twins and Vikings fan, fair weather Royals and Chiefs fan whenever they're winning, because the Twins don't very often and the Vikings never do. But Sioux Center, we have a frozen vaccine distribution center and a clinical research site located there. At Boehringer Ingelheim, we believe, and by the way, you can always call us BI, it's much easier to pronounce. We believe that the lives of animals and humans are interconnected in deep and complex ways, such that when animals are healthy, we believe humans are healthier too. And by delivering value through innovation, we enhance the well-being of both. That's our vision as a company. That belief guides our work with Midwest pork producers, cattle ranchers, and dairy farmers, as well as those in the poultry industry. We know there's a good-sized turkey business in the state of Minnesota, a huge layer business in Iowa. It's our privilege and honor to help them keep animals healthy and thereby support your endeavors in securing the national food supply and our respective export markets, which apparently is on your agenda today. Thank you again for the opportunity to participate in your meeting today, Secretary Naig. We're proud to partner with you and work alongside with each of you as we look forward to continuing to work with you in the future. We hope you enjoy the benefit from your time together in today's meeting, and thank you again for the invitation for me to join.
Well, Everett, thank you. There's still a few Hoekstras running around Northwest Iowa too, by the way. So
yeah, it's been known to be said that Sioux County is filthy with us.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Sioux County's, well, one of the top agriculture counties in the nation. And so Everett comes from a good background there in terms of agriculture. Thank you. Thanks to BI for everything you do. And we know, and this group knows, that it's also critically important that you can bring products to market, right? That there's a regulatory pathway for that, that innovation can occur and that we can accelerate that innovation, in fact, and that we can move things around the world. So thank you for what you do every day and for what you and your team do every day to support our industries, our producers. Well, very good. Well, thank you again to our sponsors. And let's jump in here. I want to make sure we try to stay on schedule. I really just wanted to give a quick overview. Again, there's no way that we can touch on this entirely, but it's important, I think, that you all know, and it's something that you would have, we would have taken a deeper dive into here in Iowa, because again, the impact on our economy. And you know, we've all experienced a significant disruption in the last few months, and certainly Secretary Arthur has led a group of folks that has gotten together to talk about processing. And that's not what we're talking about today, but animal issues we know cross borders, right? That's one thing we know for sure. It's also something that foreign animal disease prevention and preparedness is one of those things that we have not been able to, it's one of the things you can't take your eye off, right? It's we have to stay 100% focused on that regardless of what else is happening. And that's certainly been the case here in the last several months. So in fact, COVID-19 may have in fact served as a bit of a reminder that diseases can and do travel around the world quite rapidly, quite easily. And so we need to be aware of that and maybe learn a few lessons. You know, animal health, I know in your states and ours has been a focus for many years, but certainly we've experienced a push in the last couple of years to really step up our capacity at the Department of Agriculture. I know states are different, right? But the state vet is appointed by my office here in the state of Iowa, works out of the Department of Agriculture. So this is absolutely in our purview and under my purview. And so we go back, we've had a focus on this for many years, but we knew that we needed to step up our capacity, and really the impetus for pushing to move us in the right direction, or in this direction, has been back in 2015 when we had the high-path avian influenza outbreak. You know, Iowa, many of you experienced this, but Iowa certainly was ground zero in that 30 million of the 50 million birds that were impacted in the nation were impacted in the state of Iowa. We were ground zero, so to speak. And again, I know many of you experienced it as well. But of course, you know, we can't just think about high-path AI. We think about a lot of different things. And certainly we have to stay vigilant when it comes to FMD and African swine fever, Newcastle disease, and frankly, whatever comes next. We like to think there's these overarching planning that happens, and then you dig into specific diseases that you need to have specific strategies for. Now, we've worked hard trying to apply the lessons that we learned from 2015, and there are many. We learned a lot, and shame on us if we don't apply those lessons. And I just thought I might touch on a couple of those things, because again, we've interacted with many of you in a lot of different forums related to ASF and you know, high path, low path, and disease response preparedness exercises. And you've heard us talk this way, and I thought I might give a little bit of a background on why we do that. You know, one is, and we did play this out with our processing disruption as well here this past few months, and that's that we really work to empower our producers, to support them in their decision making, to support them and empower them to take action in their own farms. Now, sometimes that exceeds their ability to act, and then you've got to step in and help, but we really want to provide support to the extent that we can to them. We saw firsthand in the state of Iowa back in high path that some of our first infected sites that turned over control completely to government contractors were some of the last to get back into production, and some of the last infected sites that took ownership, did the work themselves with support from the government, were some of the first back in production. That has stuck with me, and will continue to be one of the things that we try to put forward in our planning. Two is that time is of the essence, and again, this is something that we will push nationally as well, and that's that we learned, and you've heard us push for aggressive timelines when it comes to euthanasia in response, and there's a reason for that. You've got to move quickly to contain and get ahead of the virus. Otherwise, you are behind and you are playing catch up. And so that timing is critically important. Three is that states must simply have more capacity, meaning equipment, people, whatever, to integrate with USDA and to interact directly with the impacted producers all throughout the event. You know, USDA sends in teams that will rotate in and out. The state is the constant present. And we believe that we have to have the capacity to stand in that gap, to be a part of that interaction all throughout an event. And four, we try to live out the mantra that plans are good, but planning is better. You can put a plan in a 3-ring binder and put it on a shelf, and it can make you feel good. But if you're not exercising that plan, if you aren't constantly refreshing your plans, exercising your plans, and communicating your plans to stakeholders, then that's where it sits, is on the shelf. And that's just not good enough in our estimation. And we learned that lesson. And finally, maybe the overarching goal here, or overarching lesson, is simply that when you learn something new, you have to change. You have to take that into account and adjust accordingly. And whether it's COVID-19 and processing response, or a high-path avian influenza, or what have you, or African swine fever and watching it develop around the world, we learn new things every day, and we have to apply those things. It's a 3-legged stool, and we again try to incorporate this mantra into our planning as well, and that's that the state must have a capacity to get involved directly and work together with the other legs. The federal government must have support, diagnostic labs, FMD vaccine bank, partnerships where we work together in joint command. We support APHIS and their efforts and their staffing needs. These are all critically important. And then that industry piece. And this is where stakeholders, stakeholder engagement, both in the state and really across the states and with private industry, this is critically important. One example is we just conducted, right in the middle of COVID-19, we worked with Texas A&M to develop a training program for private veterinarians to help assist us in a response to identify signs of a disease, to be able to take samples, to be able to train on-farm staff to take samples, which we know that capacity will be critically important. There aren't enough veterinarians in the federal government or the state government to be able to do the work that will need to be done. We need to engage the private sector. Just one example of how we're trying to use private-public partnerships to advance our preparedness as well. And of course, we just simply need to work together and coordinate together and do so before events occur. You don't want to be trying to establish relationships or protocols after an event starts. It's better to do those things before. And so events or venues like this and within the MASDA and NASDA family are critically important to allowing us to better prepare. So with that, I think we'll end on that note. And again, we want to be a partner to all of you. We know that things that happen across the Midwest in one state will impact other states, and it's just really important that we keep coordinated and know that we're interested in partnering in any way that we can with you all to better protect our food and agriculture system and our producers. All right, with that, I think we'll comes to the end of the session on animal industries and our Iowa piece of the program. But now, as we normally would, we want to give time to an opportunity for our great NASDA staff to update the group on what's happening in the world of NASDA and what we're looking at from a policy standpoint. So I'm going to turn it over to Barb and let you take it from here. And then after that, we will have a Food Export Midwest meeting, and I'll be turning it over to Director Chin at that point. So Barb, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Secretary Naig. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning, and good morning to MASDA. It's first order of business is for me to send regrets from President Goring. Commissioner Goring is feeling ill this morning, and I just got a note from his executive assistant, so he won't be joining us, but I'm going to reflect and lead us through a program that hopefully will give you some updates on NASDA, and I'm just really pleased to be a part of the MASDA virtual meeting. I want to start by saying thank you to MASDA and to each and every one of you, our members, for the amazing leadership and flexibility and resiliency that you've shown during this unprecedented pandemic and everything that's now following. So thank you very much for that. I know President Goring has been a really active leader as chairman of the board and leading NASDA, and his leadership has been very key to NASDA during this time. Indeed, he's weathered with the board and with myself and the staff team all of the responses that NASDA has taken on with respect to COVID-19. He's been really an active participant in the federal, state, and stakeholder three-legged stool that Secretary Naig just talked about. And I think when asked what did we do first when COVID-19 hit, I say NASDA members engaged in new partnerships and swiftly, and they were effective, and you have many, many results. So I know Doug's leadership was key as we went through that, but thank you to each one of you. Also, he was central in our summary and our development of finding new resources for state departments of ag, along with some MASDA members who were key there as well. So the Farming Support to States Act was introduced, and I know Max is going to talk a little bit about that. But again, this federal, state, and stakeholder partnership, now more than ever, has been a reason state departments of ag have really been leading agriculture. On behalf of President Goring, I want to share with you that the executive committee, led by him, we made the tough decision a couple Mondays ago to have our annual meeting go virtual in 2020. And I know this was a really tough decision for Doug and for the executive committee, but we knew it was the right thing to do. We placed the safety and well-being of all of our members and our stakeholders and anyone who really wanted to show up in Medora, North Dakota as top priority. And so we knew we could do that by holding a high quality virtual meeting. So we're looking forward to that. And I know Commissioner Goring is going to put the North Dakota flair in the 2020 annual meeting. And we're pulling out all the stops on creativity and to bring to you the appropriate blend of plenary and program, and then decisions on policy that you will make during that week in August. So we look forward to that. So I think what we'll do here now is I'm going to turn to Max, and we'll have a policy update first. I have a few more remarks from my CEO perch that I'll give. And then Martha and I are going to share with you the strategic plan report as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Max Moncaster, our Director of Public Policy.
Yeah, thank you, Barb. I appreciate that for that introduction. And thank you to Secretary Naig and the entire team over at Iowa for hosting today. Secretary Naig, in addition to being all of his many hats, he's also the Vice Chair of NASDA's International Trade Committee. So I know he does a lot of great work with us, making sure that we have open markets around the world for our products. So appreciate all your leadership, Secretary Naig. Just wanted to provide a little bit of quick policy update on what NASDA's been working on and our primary objectives. Obviously, the COVID-19 response has really sucked up our attention and time, as it has for everybody else. And we've seen a lot of good stuff come out of the third round, of COVID-19 relief. That was the package that included a lot of the SBA loans from the Small Business Administration and some other immediate relief that's designed to help producers. And so we felt like that was a good package. It was an immediate Band-Aid that was needed, but we always felt like it was a bit of a down payment. And that's what we're working on now, is how to get that fourth package across the line. We know there's a lot of hurt out there still, and a lot of areas that are going to be necessary for the COVID-19 response and recovery. So that's what we're pushing for. Certainly, as Barb mentioned, the Farming Support for States Act is one that we've been pushing really hard for. That's an act that would essentially give state departments of agriculture dedicated resources, dedicated funding to be able to support COVID-19 recovery needs. Our philosophy is that our states know best what's happening, and that the federal programs are very helpful, but they're not going to be able to cover every gap. So we feel like that's a really important aspect that we're pushing for. And we're in pretty good shape. We have bipartisan support in both the Senate and the House for that legislation. And I think we're probably not going to see it move standalone, but as part of a broader COVID-19 relief package that comes together this summer, we definitely could see some movement there. So we're excited for that. After the 4th of July recess, I think those negotiations are going to kick off pretty strongly for what's going to be in that final package, or that fourth relief package. So it's something we'll be following pretty closely. I think it's also relevant just to note that there are a couple areas that we're looking at pretty heavily that in the wake of COVID-19 are going to be really important. So when you look at things like value-added processing, especially in our meat and poultry sector, or rural broadband, there are a host of other issues connected to NASDA's overall strategy for rural economic development and resilience that we're going to be focusing on. They're going to be even more relevant in the post-COVID-19 era. So I also just want to touch on some trade issues. I know that's a hot topic for all of us. USMCA obviously went into force last week, so that was a very exciting moment. And hopefully we're going to play a little more offense now that the immediate impacts of COVID-19 response are behind us. NASDA has been engaging pretty heavily with both USTR and also Undersecretary McKinney and USDA on the plans going forward. So I think we'll start to see some more offensive maneuvers here in the near future. That's all I have to cover for today, but happy to take questions if there are burning issues on folks' mind. And as always, I mean, please see NASDA as a resource. Myself and Zach and Sarah on our policy team, as well as Barb, we're always happy to help, and we really rely on you all to give us the best intel on what's going on at the state level. So appreciate all your support and look forward to seeing you all soon.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Max. I'm going to now just make a few remarks from my CEO perch. In addition to our pivot toward a virtual annual meeting, we're excited about several aspects that were reviewed by the NASDA Board of Directors on May 18th. I'm very happy to report to you that NASDA is in a very sound position financially and programmatically, and also in terms of our staff. It's been, as I said, business more than usual, and I'm sure you'd agree with me that we've been working harder than ever. At that meeting, the Board of Directors approved our FY21 budget for NASDA, and we are aware that state budget challenges are coming, but we have a robust proposed budget for FY21 that's been approved. We'd also like to commend to you the draft strategic plan, which we'll cover here in just a few minutes. And I want to do a shout out right now for Commissioner Ryan Quarles from Kentucky, who led that strategic planning work group and the effort. As always, we did place staff safety and health as a top priority back in March, and I'm really proud of our staff and how they've been working. I noted this morning at staff meeting, we're in our 17th week this week of work from home. But we are looking to the future for reopening. Our NASDA HQ plan says that staff may come in July 13th, but we continue to encourage work from home at this time. We're following several mandates from the federal government, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. So, but we will be back in headquarters, I hope, sometime in August. So we're here to serve you as always, and you can always reach out to myself or anybody on the staff team. So with that, Secretary Naig, now we'd like to share some remarks with respect to the strategic plan. And so we're going to jump right into that, and Martha and I are going to present that to you. So are the slides moving? Here we go. Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm just going to, first of all, share regrets from Commissioner Quarles, who wished he could be here to present this to you. I will say that I think you've been sent this slide deck for your review, and we're really excited to make some brief remarks to you at this time regarding the strategic plan. I think now more than ever, it's time for us to have a plan that's robust, that's on the edge, that leads us forward as key leaders in the future of the new normal for food and ag, and we will stand on your shoulders. The NASDA members have the power, you have the power, you have the expertise, and you are poised and perched in an amazing position to lead forward in food and agriculture post-COVID in this new normal. So that's what this is all about, and I look forward to, again, we wanted you to have time to react to this and provide us with any feedback that you might have. So with that, Martha led us through this with her able leadership. I'm gonna have her share with you the process that we took for this activity. So go ahead, Martha.
Great, thank you, Barb. On this first slide, you can see who represented NASDA on the working group. We worked really hard to make sure that we had a great cross-section of all of our members, and that included regional representation. Autumn, you can go to the next slide. We started with telephone interviews that included all of the working group members and several stakeholders, and then all members and state staff as well as additional stakeholders were invited to participate in an electronic survey. The working group came together in January to meet, and following that meeting, we brought our staff in. At that point, we were actually already remote, so the staff reviewed the plan with our consultant, Nuffield Tucker, who they led us through this entire process. And now we're in the final step, which is presenting it to the regional meetings in advance of the board reviewing it in September. So we welcome any feedback. Our contact information is at the end. But as we go through, please let us know if there's any gaps or anything that you'd like to have included. We feel like the working group did a great job, but always looking to make sure that this represents all members. So our core values were a big part of this process. We wanted to all start on the same page with what members felt was the most important. And it's also important for us, for our stakeholders looking in, to know where we stand. So together, we believe in advocating for American agriculture, food systems, and rural communities, engaging in dialogue and collaborating with a diverse set of stakeholders, making decisions informed by sound science, and earning trust by acting with integrity and transparency. None of these are changes or any sort of groundbreaking news, but we wanted it in writing, and we wanted it to be clearly identified for everyone who wonders how NASDA functions. In our interesting, nonpartisan, national role, it's important for us to balance all of these things to maintain the reputation that our members have worked so hard to build. Great. And I'll turn it over to Barb now.
Yeah, so this is our new mission as proposed. I want to commend to you the engagement of the Strategic Planning Working Group. We had in that face-to-face meeting, it was an amazing and eclectic, I guess, team effort to pull this together. So here it is: grow and enhance American agriculture through policy, partnerships, and public engagement. Our vision is agriculture leads the way toward a healthy and resilient world. And our purpose is to nourish people and communities while serving as stewards of the environment and public trust. Moving off of the mission, vision, and purpose, the working group identified 4 strategic priorities, and I think they really hit the mark and lean forward for the organization. The first one is a focus on government affairs, and this indeed is one of the top priorities of our policy team. So we'll be even more assertively representing agriculture on Capitol Hill. It's a presidential election year. We're going to have a lot of new members. We'll have a lot of work to do, and there's an ever declining knowledge about food and agriculture. I will say post haste that with COVID-19, perhaps we'll have more that are on point with food and agriculture. So that's a good news. So that's our first strategic priority, working on Capitol Hill and indeed with the federal agencies, government entities. The second one is a huge focus on enhancing member engagement. The entire organization, our united voice, and the work that we do rests with you. And so we need to continue to have a strong member engagement and education priority. And this will be a place where we can convene members with modern tools for information sharing, peer networking, and consensus building. I don't believe you can ever do too much to pull your members together and create that culture for that united voice. So we'll be working on that. The third strategic priority that was emphasized by the working group was growing partnerships. And we've talked about partnerships a lot here on the MASDA call, but this is key. This is how things get done in a nonpartisan way. And as a nonpartisan voice, we have amazing ability to sway the future of food and ag, working with stakeholders on key agricultural issues. And I think this is a very important strategic priority for us. The fourth one and the final one is conducting and facilitating strategic public engagement. And this is really focused on what can NASDA do with respect to public engagement. It's not really a campaign to reach the general public per se, but it's engaging key media influencers and empowering stakeholders with outreach tools to elevate the importance of American agriculture. We need to spend a lot more time on talking about what we do well and what we need to do together for advancing, particularly during this unprecedented time. So these are our 4 strategic priorities. So next steps, I'll ask Martha to follow up, but we're going to incorporate any feedback we get. But the decision on approval of our strategic plan does reside with the board of directors. And so just prior to the annual meeting, when they hold their meeting, they'll be taking a motion on this. So please look for that launch during the annual meeting, and at the conclusion for sure, we'll be celebrating our new strategic plan. I'm sure of it. So Martha, do you have any other comments?
I don't think so. Just as we said at the beginning, please let us know if you have any feedback on the plan. It will be finalized. We fully expect the board to approve it at our board meeting at the end of August. So there are more action plans and more detail will be coming in the near future, but this is really the meat of it. This is a quick way for someone who intimately knows NASDA or is just getting to know NASDA to see where we're going. Thank you.
Okay, with that, Secretary Naig, that concludes the NASDA team report. Thank you so much for giving us time to be with everyone today. And again, I just want to do another shout out to MASDA for the amazing work that you've done. We didn't even highlight the Ramp Up Act that was just introduced, late last week. It's today. Congratulations to Secretary Arthur, who was leading that, along with Commissioner Hatcher over in Tennessee. And so our processing working group has deep roots in MASDA. So thanks so much for all your leadership. And thank you, Secretary Naig.
Well, thank you, Barb and Max and Martha. Are there any, we can certainly try to take some questions here if there are any for Barb, but maybe just I'll give folks a chance if you want to queue up or raise your hand or let us know in the chat box or Q&A if you do want to ask a question here. But Barb, it's interesting to hear the strategic plan presented now. And of course, we went through this whole process, and I enjoyed the process. And you don't always say that about a strategic planning process, but I did enjoy it. And I thought the facilitators did a great job. And our team here from the Midwest, Blaine and Doug and Bruce, I think carried the voice of Midwest really well. But what's interesting to me is how well this has already held up through a crisis, right? So we weren't thinking about a COVID-19 pandemic when we were thinking of this strategy and how to put it into words. And yet here we sit today, and I like where we are with it. Now there's always chance for improvement. And so I think, again, if you have thoughts or you've got questions or you've got ideas, certainly we want to know those things before the board takes action here to finalize. But I like where we stand today and what our commitment and our vision and our core values in particular.
Well, thank you, Secretary. That's really great to hear. For all of you to know, in the introductory letter and where we list all the participants, we did a call out box specifically on COVID-19 because we have to be attentive to the situation that we're in. But I think what Secretary Naig has said is, I've looked at it and I think it's true, resilient with respect to where we are. And I think that's just testament to what we do in agriculture. I mean, we're always ready to pivot and move. So I appreciate that remark though, Mike, thank you.
Very good. Now, has anybody popped in here and wanted to ask a question quick of Barb and the team before we move to Food Export Midwest? I'll just give it another couple seconds here. This is hard because our group would normally be just talking all over each other. And, I miss that. I really miss that, guys. I do. All right. Looks like we'll have to take questions another way. But Barb, again, thanks for what you and the NASDA staff team have been doing to help keep things moving in the right direction. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. And with that, I'm going to now turn it over to Director Chin and to Tim Hamilton. We've got a Food Export Midwest business meeting that we need to have. So Chris, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. We appreciate it. Tim, I'm going to go ahead and just jump on in through our agenda unless there's anything that you would like to say prior to moving right into the business meeting.
No, we're good to go.
Okay.
Thanks, Director.
You're welcome. So I know Tim and his staff emailed everybody an email a couple weeks ago that had the financial report in it. And I hope you've all had an opportunity to look through that. And that's the first thing on our agenda today, is to talk about that. And I think Director Wellman is on. And at this time, I would turn it over to Director Wellman and let him give brief remarks and address any concerns anyone might have.
Great, thanks, President Chin. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay.
We can.
Okay, so the audit committee did meet and they audited the financial statements at the end of December 31st of 2019. We received a clean, unqualified audit opinion, and so good news on the financial audit. There are two other components of the audit also. One is the management letter, and then also the A133 audit, which is required by USDA and FAS on the programs that are conducted through those cooperators, through those agencies as us as a cooperator. Anyway, those two components also had no findings, no adjustments. So good news all the way around from the audit work. And I have a motion, and then we can take some questions if there are any. So at this time, I move we approve the Food Export Midwest's audited financial or fiscal year 2019 financial statement and management letter, SAS 114 statement, and A133 review for the fiscal year ended December 31, 2019. And you should have a copy of that motion on page 2 of the document following the agenda.
Great. Thank you, Director Wellman. Is there a second?
I second. This is Mike Negg.
Thank you, Secretary Negg. Is there any discussion? Not seeing anybody come off of mute. With that, we'll go ahead, and all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Okay, great. Thank you for that, Director Wellman. We appreciate it. Our next item on our agenda is other business, and we're going to discuss the Executive Director contract renewal. The Personnel Committee met back on June the 19th via conference call, and the recommendation that was voted out of the Personnel Committee was to give Tim Hamilton a 4.5% salary increase. This mirrors what the average salary increase was for his staff. So at this time, I would present that as a motion, and I would entertain a second.
I'll second that, Director Chin. This is Secretary Arthur.
Thank you, Blaine. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I would call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Great. With that, thank you, Tim, for everything that you do. I know the last few months have been extremely challenging for you at Food Export Midwest, but your leadership has just been a shining star in a very challenging time. I know you had to work directly with USDA on some fund availability, and you were really the leader in doing that, and we really appreciate that you manage a lot of different moving parts, and you do it very well, and we really appreciate the dedication that you have, not only to us in the States, but also to your team members as well. So thank you for doing your job and doing it so very well.
Director, thank you. I appreciate it. I will take just a couple minutes since we've got a couple minutes here. I don't want to use up too much of Secretary Negg's time, but I wanted to let you know, similar to what Barb had to say with NASDA, we've done a similar thing with Food Export. We've been working from home since mid-March because we travel a lot. You know, in our industry, we were pretty well set up technologically, so we've made the switch pretty well. Just in terms of the industry, as you know, we do a lot of face-to-face introductions with people from around the world. And guess what you can't do right now is, fly people halfway around the world and introduce them to one another. So all of those events have pretty much been canceled from mid-March. At this point, we're almost into November and almost into December on trade shows and stuff like that. There's one in Paris in October that's going to go ahead, but most of them have been canceled. So we shifted 2 weeks ago. We did our first virtual introduction where we put, I think it was about 30 U.S. suppliers, about 11 foreign buyers. We scheduled one-on-one meetings across 13 time zones over 4 days. The person who scheduled it was a little bit crazy at the end of it, but it worked really well, and the companies who participated were really happy with the results. We didn't get any complaints, which is pretty unusual. And then we've gone ahead and scheduled a new event next month that will actually be a more professional version of that, and that sold out pretty quickly. So we're kind of shifting focus and moving to a more virtual world, and until we can kind of be back face to face. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention was, as Director Chin said, the cancellation of a lot of these events means that our revenue has taken a hit. We still haven't quite figured out how much. It's anywhere between 15 and 20% for the year. But I sat down with my colleagues in the South and in the West, and also with the trade team, the people that had to handle the trade promotion at NASDA, and we came up with a proposal to FAS to make a one-time accommodation to allow us to use some of our program money to make up for those revenue shortfalls. And so we got agreement that we could go ahead and do that. And so that should hopefully take care of our financial picture that, I'll know better by the meeting, the annual meeting in late August. But we should be financially in okay shape. We might have to dip into the reserve a little bit, but if so, not too much. So there's a brief summary of the, just things going on at Food Export attached to the email that was sent out before the meeting. I'd encourage you to take a look at that. And the last thing I'll just say is, with all the regard to the mute button, my staff have tried to figure out how they can come up with a mute button in real life when we're back to working in the office. So we haven't quite got that figured out yet, but we'll let you know when we've got it going. So.
Thank you, Tim. We appreciate that. So our last item on our agenda is officer elections, and our current slate of officers for the upcoming year is Bruce Kettler will become our new president, Steve Wellman will become our new vice president, and our secretary treasurer will be filled by Blaine Arthur, who has agreed to take on that new responsibility as well. So with that, I would present this slate of officers, and I would entertain a second.
I'll second that, Mike Nag.
Thank you, Mike. Is there any other nominations? Seeing none. Is there any other discussion? Okay. I see nobody coming off mute. So with that, we will take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You three scared me. I was afraid you weren't going to say aye. So all those opposed, same sign. Okay, not hearing any. Congratulations, President Kettler. You will be the new president, and at the NASDA annual meeting, you will have the new responsibilities, and I wish you a lot of success. You've got a great team there with you, and I know you guys will do a great job. And Tim, it's been an honor to work with you. You really make this position very easy and extremely organized, and I can't thank you enough for helping me the past year. So
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. With that, I'm going to turn control back over to Secretary Nag. I think we're finished unless anybody else has any other business they want to bring before the group. Not hearing any, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Secretary Nag. Thank you for allowing us to have 10 minutes on the agenda today.
Well, absolutely, Chris. And Tim, just again, I commend the team. The work y'all do is so important, and to figure out creative ways to connect folks. It's not as if you're sitting on the sidelines waiting for life to get back to normal. We've got to move ahead, and we appreciate the creativity, innovation that's coming, and we'll need to for the next several months, frankly, to continue to connect folks. So really appreciate that, what you and your team are doing.
Thank you, Secretary.
All right. Well, we're at the end of our time, and just again, thanks for joining us and for participating in these MASDA Mondays, and we've enjoyed the chance to just give you a little bit of a taste of what you'd experience here. We all are anxious to get together again. I know we'll all be anxious to be with Steve and his team in Nebraska next year, and I hope that those things can happen in 21. I mentioned at the beginning, and that's we'd intended to incorporate a service project into the MASDA meeting, and a great group of a great organization here in Iowa, Meals from the Heartland, where we intended to pack and put you all to work. And those meal packages go domestically, but also to feeding young people in particular all around the world. So we took a team from the department here to pack meals last week. In 2 hours, we were able to package 58,000 meals. And so actually, as we left that opportunity or that packing event, several of our team members said, "Do you think we could do this more often?" And so I think we actually just created maybe a new reoccurring effort where we will, in fact, do service projects on a more regular basis. And so that's been something fun that the team brought to us after we had been there. So again, I would just encourage you to consider your own service project here this summer. And if you do, let us know. We'd love to put that together and share with everybody across the region what we did together. And to help others in need, because of course that's what we do in agriculture. We feed and fuel and clothe people here and all around the world, and we know that the importance of that now more than ever. So again, thanks for joining us. Really wish you all well. Thank you again to our sponsors. It means a lot. It really does that we had such great support from sponsors and partners as we were leading up to this meeting, and then to have them remain committed and leave their financial contribution in place for us to use at MASDA. It means a lot, and I think it does speak volumes about them and about you all as well. So again, with that, we'll end here. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great rest of the summer, and I hope we can all see each other sometime soon. Take care.